Hi everybody, I'm back this week with a brand new read aloud. And I chose this read aloud because it's still March and we're still celebrating Women's History Month, which I love to celebrate. You know that I celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month in September and October. And then in February we celebrate Black History Month. And in March we celebrate Women's History Month. And I have something else we'll be celebrating in April. Stay tuned. But anyway, so for Women's History Month, we're still celebrating some important women in history. And this book that I've chosen for this week is called Rosie, Revere, Engineer. And Rosie, Revere, Engineer is a fictional book. So it's a made-up story. But you're going to see someone talked about in this story, or maybe referred to in this story, and it's Rosie the Riveter. So if you've read a history book, you may have seen this ad before. We can do it. It's this woman, Rosie the Riveter. And this was actually an ad that was taken out in newspapers during World War II. And Rosie the Riveter was a woman who represented women working for our country. So when many of our men were away fighting in World War II, the women had to become the workers for our country. So this was part of a campaign to gather interest and gather women to start working in some of the jobs that were traditionally the men's jobs. So this ad was put out to encourage women to maybe join some jobs like airplane building. And although we don't know who the real Rosie the Riveter was, or who was this woman that was represented here in this ad, there's been a lot of controversy over who this woman really was. But anyway, this particular ad became the face for women working during World War II. So this is the Rosie the Riveter from the ad campaign during World War II. And this book will allude to her, Rosie Revere, Engineer. This book will allude to her, so I just wanted you to see who she was and know a little bit of background about her. And this is about girls growing up to become anything they want to. And it's not only a book for girls, or to be celebrated during Women's History Month, but I feel like it's for all of us, because it sort of reminds me of the book, What Can You Do with an Idea? It reminds me of these ideas that we have during our makerspace time, and when people tell us, oh, that'll never work, it's not going to work. Or if we build something and try it and it doesn't work, and people say, see, told you it wouldn't work. Well, you know what? You have to have confidence. You have to have faith that your invention will work, that someday it'll become something. And you can't give up. And the moral of this story is, don't give up on your dreams. And so it's not only a book for Women's History Month or for girls, it's for everyone. It has a great message for all of us. So it's Rosie Revere, Engineer. And my big fun surprise is that I am going to be using my fun app that my fourth graders love. It's called Novel Effect. Novel, like a novel that you read, Novel, Novel Effect, Effect. It's an app you can get on your iPhone or iPad with your parents' permission, and it brings stories to life. So as I read Rosie Revere, the book, this app is going to add some fun sound effects. Okay? So if you like this idea, you can download the app, and maybe some of these books that are in the catalog of the app you might have in your house. There are some books that you used to read at Roosevelt, some old favorites that are on this app. Dragons Love Tacos, Goodnight Moon, How Much Do I Love You? There are so many old favorites from when you were little that you might find on this app, but also there are some new ones too. So I'm going to read you Rosie Revere, Engineer, and I'm turning on my sound effects right now, okay? Here we go. Rosie Revere, Engineer, by Andrea Beatty, illustrated by David Roberts. Let's see if you can see. This is a story of Rosie Revere, who dreamed of becoming a great engineer. In Lila Greer's classroom at Blue River Creek, young Rosie sat shyly, not daring to speak. But when no one saw her, she peeked in the trash for treasures to add to her engineer's stash. And late at night, Rosie rolled up her sleeves and built in her hideaway under the eaves. You hear the hammering? Alone in her attic, the moon high above, dear Rosie made gadgets and gizmos she loved. And when she grew sleepy, she hid her machines far under the bed where they'd never be seen. You hear the ticking? When Rosie was young, she had not been so shy. She worked with her hair swooping over one eye and made fine inventions for uncles and aunts, a hot dog dispenser and helium pants.
My britches are afloat. Good show.
The uncle she loved most was zookeeper Fred. She made him a hat to keep snakes off his head. From parts of a fan and some cheddar cheese spray, which everyone knows keeps the pythons away. How do you like it so far? It's fun, right? And when it was finished, young Rosie was proud. But Fred slapped his knee, and he chuckled out loud. He laughed till he wheezed, and his eyes filled with tears, all to the horror of Rosie Revere, who stood there embarrassed, perplexed, and dismayed. She looked at the cheese hat and then looked away. "I love it," Fred hooted. "Oh, I truly do." But Rosie Revere knew that could not be true. She stuck the cheese hat on the back of her shelf, and after that day, kept her dreams to herself.
What's the point?
Poor Rosie. Even her own uncle made fun of her design. And that's how it went until one autumn day, her oldest relation showed up for a stay. Her great-great-aunt Rose was a true dynamo who'd worked building airplanes a long time ago. She told Rosie tales of the things she had done and goals she had checked off her list one by one. She gave a sad smile as she looked to the sky. "The only thrill left on my list is to fly. But time never lingers as long as it seems. I'll chalk that one up to an old lady's dreams." That's Rosie the Riveter. There she is. I told you they'd allude to her. So this is her great-great-aunt, Rosie the Riveter, and she has one dream, and it's to fly. But she said, I'm just an old lady. It'll never happen. That night, Rosie lay wide-eyed in bed. A daring idea crept into her head. Could she build a gizmo to help her aunt fly? She looked at the cheese hat and said, "No, not I." But questions are tricky and some hold on tight, and this one kept Rosie awake through the night. So when dawn approached and red streaks lit the sky, young Rosie knew just how to make her aunt fly.
I know what to do.
What could she do? She worked and she worked till the day was half gone. Then she hauled her cheese copter onto the lawn to give her invention a test just to see the ridiculous flop it might turn out to be. Strapped into the cockpit, she flipped on the switch. The helio cheese copter sputtered and twitched. It floated a moment and whirled round and round, then froze for a heartbeat and crashed to the ground. Then Rosie heard laughter and turned round to see the old woman laughing and slapping her knee. She laughed till she wheezed and her eyes filled with tears, all to the horror of Rosie Revere, who thought, "Oh no, never, not ever again, will I try to build something to sputter or spin, or build with a lever, a switch, or a gear, and never will I be a great engineer." She turned round to leave, but then Great-Great-Aunt Rose grabbed hold of young Rosie and pulled her in close and hugged her and kissed her and started to cry. "You did it! Hooray! It's the perfect first try. This great flop is over. It's time for the next." Young Rosie was baffled, embarrassed, perplexed. "I failed," said dear Rosie. "It's just made of trash." "Didn't you see it? The cheese copter crashed." "Yes," said her great aunt, "it crashed, that is true. But first it did just what it needed to do. Before it crashed, Rosie, before that, it flew."
Wonderful, Rosie.
"Your brilliant first flop was a raging success. Come on, let's get busy, and on to the next."
Let's get to it.
She handed a notebook to Rosie Revere, who smiled at her aunt as it all became clear. Life might have its failures, but this was not it. The only true failure can come if you quit. They worked till the sun sneaked away to its bed. Aunt Rose tied her headscarf around Rosie's head and sent her to sleep with a smile ear to ear, to dream the bold dreams of a great engineer. And, I hope you notice, we can do it. At Blue River Creek, all the kids in grade 2 built gizmos and gadgets and doohickeys too. With each perfect failure, they all stand and cheer, but none quite as proudly as Rosie Revere. The end. And I hope you love that book as much as I did. And I hope you love the novel effect. And maybe we'll try that again another time. But if you'd like to download it, it's in the App Store. And it's free, in case you were wondering. And I told you, it has a great message. You can do it. Don't quit. Don't give up. It's a message for everyone. So I miss you. I hope you enjoy.